So when some people think about domestic violence, the first thing that might come to mind is physical abuse and then maybe emotional abuse. But those are not the only two forms, and one type that often flies under the radar is financial abuse. And this is a little bit of a heavier topic, but I wanted to talk about it because I feel it's something that doesn't get talked about nearly as much as it should, and it's also something that many people don't recognize or even know about, even when they're living it. But although some people aren't familiar with this, it is common, and it actually occurs in about 99% of domestic violence cases, often alongside other forms of abuse. But it can also occur by itself, meaning that there isn't any physical or emotional abuse, in which case financial abuse does become a silent weapon to the point where some victims don't even realize they're being taken advantage of, which is the reason why I wanted to do this video. And for those who aren't familiar with this term, financial abuse is a type of abuse that takes place in close relationships, such as between intimate partners or even between a caregiver and an elderly person. And it's basically when one person uses money to manipulate and control another person, so they essentially use money as a weapon. And I've been hearing this term more and more recently, but I got my first glimpse of this many years ago when I was watching something on TV, and I think it might have been a reality show. But there was this lady, and she was talking about her husband, and she mentioned that he refused to let her work and that she didn't really have access to their credit cards or their bank cards because he paid all the bills. And I was young at the time, but I remember thinking, okay, well, that's a little odd that she has to ask him for everything. But when she was telling the story, she wasn't really telling it to complain about him, because in her mind, he was doing all of this because he loved her and he didn't want her to worry about it. And I shrugged it off and didn't give it much additional thought. But what I didn't realize at the time was that his behavior might have been a form of financial abuse. And I do place emphasis on the might, because truthfully, I don't know these people, but it did resemble it. And I researched this very carefully to make sure I have an accurate understanding. So I also think it's important to understand what financial abuse isn't, because without that understanding, I feel that some people might casually toss that term around. And to give you an example, I recently saw a video where a wife mentioned not working because her and her husband decided that they wanted to have at least one parent home, and it was a mutual agreement. And basically, someone in the comments section tried to claim that she was a victim of financial abuse, and because she didn't work, her husband was using money to control her, which was definitely an overreach considering that we knew absolutely nothing else about this couple. So it's important to note that financial abuse is not one person preferring that the other not work, or maybe one person handling the majority of the finances, nor does it mean that you won't have disagreements about money, because those types of scenarios can take place in a healthy relationship. Healthy meaning that both partners have input on the financial decisions and they're honest with each other. Financial abuse is much deeper, and according to the National Network to End Domestic Violence, it can take many forms, such as one person withholding money or giving an allowance without the other's input, not allowing someone to access bank accounts, forbidding someone to work or sabotaging their work opportunities, or forcing someone to work in the family business without pay. And going back to what I said earlier, it's really all about control and being able to control one's partner with money. And as far as the actual root of this, there isn't really a simple explanation, but one very possible reason is to prevent the other person from leaving the relationship. Because if the abuser can take away their financial resources, it becomes a lot harder for them to get out. And even if a person wants out, a lot of times they don't have any income, they don't have a credit history, and they don't have anything in savings. So they end up staying where the cycle continues. And while some do eventually leave, it's estimated that 7 in 8 women return to an abuser. Now keep in mind, this does not mean that men aren't abused too, because some are. Whereas financial abuse affects about 1 in 5 women, it also affects 1 in 7 men. Now getting out of this situation is by no means easy, and we're not even going to pretend that it is. But along with recognizing the signs, it's also important to take steps that will allow you to take back control of your finances. Now, when it comes to overcoming this type of abuse, there is a lot of advice available. And one thing that I've discovered is that there really isn't a one-size blueprint for getting help. It really depends on the extent of your situation. But a good place to start might be to contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline, where you can work with a domestic violence advocate. This person can help you come up with a plan, which might include leaving the relationship, finding work, and also finding a safe place to live. Now, if you feel that things aren't completely out of control yet, you might also try talking with your partner and seeing if you can work together to fix the issue, and you might even look into financial counseling. It also helps to educate yourself about personal finance, which might include spending a little time each day building financial literacy. You can also open a bank account in your name and start saving, which of course will involve having your own income. You can also review your credit report and set up fraud alerts, where you'll receive notification when a new account opens in your name, and you can also get a credit freeze to stop the opening of new accounts. Also, it's important that you don't blindly sign your name to documents, and you can also take steps to start building or rebuilding your credit history, and one option is to apply for a secured credit card once you have income. And this is by no means a comprehensive list of things that you can do, but I do feel that it is a good starting point for gaining control and moving forward. So that's all that I have for you guys today. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give me a thumbs up and definitely hit subscribe if you haven't already. I talk a lot about personal finance, so if you like videos like this, I do post every weekend and sometimes during the week. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in a few days.